Okay, and now we're back with a lesson on leaves. Guess what? Leaves have three functions, but they're different functions than stems and roots. Leaves move oxygen and carbon dioxide gases in and out of the plant through stomata. There's a word that's different. Okay, so leaves have holes. We'll talk about the leaf holes in a second. They move water into the leaf and out into the air through transpiration. So water moves into the leaf um, through transpiration, and then out of the leaf, right? So water will uh, move out of the leaf into the air as well. Okay. So the movement of water up into the leaves and eventually out of the leaf is called transpiration. And of course, the most important part, they capture the sunlight through chlorophyll in their chloroplast. Remember, chloroplast is an organelle that only plant cells have, and its job is to do photosynthesis, right? So that's the most important one, capturing sunlight for photosynthesis. Okay. Now, if you cut a leaf, um, if you cut a leaf and were able to look at the cut in the microscope, you would see this. Okay, so here on top we have the top of the leaf, which is called the epidermis. And just like the epidermis of humans, right, that's our skin, right, this is plant skin. So its job is to keep things from coming out. Uh, Definitely including water and gases. So we don't want water and gases coming out of just any place on the plant because then your plant would dry up. Um, this epidermis is on the top and on the bottom. And both the top and the bottom of this plant have something called a cuticle. So you have a cuticle on your body too. You have a cuticle on your nail, and it's a thin, waxy layer, right? And on the plant, the wax keeps water from coming out. So this is to help them to conserve water. If you have houseplants that normally grow in very hot climates, you'll notice that their leaves are waxy, right? And that's to prevent all of the water from evaporating. Now, we have in the middle of the plant, we have what's called vascular bundle. A vascular bundle is a vein, basically, for the plant made out of xylem and phloem, right? So you'll see half will be made out of xylem, usually the top half, and half will be made out of phloem, usually the bottom half. Okay. We also have tissue called mesophyll. Okay. And the mesophyll is divided into two types. There's palisade near the top, and there's spongy near the bottom. So the palisade ones contain chloroplasts. And so these ones near the top of the leaf are the ones that do photosynthesis, right? So you will see they are actually a darker green than the rest of the plant, and that's because they contain a lot of chloroplasts, so they can do photosynthesis. Okay, the ones at the bottom are spongy because you can see they have spaces between them, the, the mesophyll on the bottom. And that's because that is where air is sort of stored. So oxygen, carbon dioxide is stored until we figure out which one we have too much of and which one we should let go out of the plant. It will go out of something called a stoma. Plural is stomata, which is just a hole in the plant. And there are two cells on either side of the hole called guard cells. And their job is to open the cells when we have a lot of water and a lot of air, and close the cells when we don't have very much water or very much air. Okay, so here we have on the next page, we have a chart of the different structures. So cuticle, epidermis, guard cells, palisade layer, spongy layer, and veins. So we have a description of their structure, right? Because remember, structure and function are linked. So cuticles are waxy, right? Waxy means they're made out of a hydrophobic thing, and the hydrophobic thing prevents water, right? So the let's make a note about that. Maybe we'll make it over here. These are waxy, which means they are hydrophobic, right? Which means water can't pass through. Epidermis is one cell thick. It's the outermost layer of a leaf, and it protects the inner cells. That makes sense, right? So it's on the outside, and it protects the cells, the other cells. I think that makes perfect sense. Guard cells, they open and close, and they control CO2, O2, and H2O to go. So the CO2 comes into the plant, and the O2 and the H2O go out, right? CO2 is needed for photosynthesis. O2 and H2O, O2 is a product of photosynthesis, and H2O, sometimes we just have extra of that. The palisade layer is densely packed column-shaped mesophyll cells. Oh, hold on. This part is incorrect. No gas exchange happens here. Okay. So these ones have chlorophyll, and they're used for the site of photosynthesis. Okay. And then we have the spongy layer that's loosely packed, and that's where the gases are stored and exchanged. Right. Then we have the xylem and the phloem, right? And so that's vascular tissue, right? And we know that the xylem transports water because we just did this with stems, and the phloem transports sugar. Okay. Next, we got to talk about photosynthesis because that's an important job of the leaf. It's the process by which carbon dioxide enters the leaves of the plants and reacts with water in the presence of sunlight to produce glucose and oxygen. So here we have carbon dioxide plus water plus light energy. Sometimes you see the light energy over the arrow, okay? Because it's, technically not a substance, it's energy. But we make glucose and oxygen. So here's a chemical word equation. So we take 6 carbon dioxides and 6 waters and light energy, and we bring them together and we make glucose, C6H12O6, right? We know that from our gizmo, and 6 oxygens, okay? And that's photosynthesis. We've talked about photosynthesis already in the last unit. Now, the stoma. So how do the stoma open and close to control oxygen and water? So when we have a lot of water, water enters the guard cells and it collects in the central vacuole, and that places pressure on the cell wall, and that then the guard cells change shape, and then they become swollen, and this causes the center to open, right? Which means water goes out. So if there's a lot of water, it will go into the guard cells. It'll change the shape of the guard cells. It will allow the stoma to open, and it will allow water to come out, right? It's a perfect process because the guard cells only swell when there's a lot of water, and the stoma only needs to open when there's a lot of water, right? It makes sense. Okay. And then when the water leaves the guard cell, so there's not a lot of water anymore because it's all gone out of the plant. The cells shrink and they change shape and they close the stoma so no more water can get out. Perfect system. Okay. And then we have different types of leaves. We have different adaptations. We have so many different types of leaves. In fact, most plants you can identify by looking at the leaves, right? So if you have one of those apps where you identify the plant, it's probably looking at the leaves. We have different types. So first, we can look at how the blades are arranged. If something has one single blade and leaves grow just like in ones, this is a simple leaf. But sometimes they grow in stalks with a whole bunch of them. That's a compound leaf, right? So leaves can be simple or compound. Their vein pattern, right? Their vascular bundles can be arranged parallel, right? All going in the same direction. Pinnate or palmate. So palmate is like a maple leaf, right? Pinnate is when you have a central one and they all come off the central one, right? So, right, all of the side ones come off one central one. That's pinnate. And parallel means that they all go usually like that, right? So grasses are parallel, okay? Elm trees are pinnate and maple trees are palmate. Okay, go on a walk tonight. I know it's a little chilly now, and investigate your trees. And then we have different arrangements of leaves on the stem. So they can be opposite, where they're directly, one grows on one side and one grows at the same point on the other. They can alternate, which just means like, so this one is a little bit lower. This one will be a little bit higher, and the next one will be a little bit higher still. Okay. Or they can be whirled, which means we have multiple ones at the same level, right? Like leaves will grow sort of in a circle. Okay. So the maple trees are an example of alternate. Oak trees and walnut trees are an example of opposite. And I don't think we have any oleander here, but I could be wrong. I think we're too cold for oleander in Canada. Let's see. Uh, Oleander trees, Canada? Well, I think you can buy them at the store. Um, yeah, maybe oleander we grow and we move inside like the garage for the winter. Okay. So that's it for leaves, and now we have leaf questions. So it says label the cross section of the lilac leaf using the words below. So, oh no, now it's not a drawing, now it's an actual cross section from an actual leaf. Okay, so at the top, we have this one cell thick layer, and that because that's on the outside, this one must be the epidermis. By the way, if you want to fill this in on your own and come back for the answers, you know where the pause button is. I just like to remind you, okay? On top of the epidermis, we have a cuticle. So I know when we did the leaf here, we showed the cuticle on the bottom, but you can clearly see maybe that it's also on the top as well, right? Because here is the epidermis and here's the cuticle. So the cuticle is actually usually both on the top and the bottom, and especially on the top because it prevents water from coming out the top, right? That's important. Most leaves are shiny on the top, and that's because of the cuticle. Okay, just wanted to point that out. I know diagrams can be confusing. So next we have this layer of long cells. This is your palisade layer. And at the bottom, you can see the ones with the spaces, right? So this is your spongy layer. And right there, we can see this one is a vascular bundle. And so you can see there are ones on the top that are different colors and ones on the bottom that are different colors. And if you go back up to the previous diagram, you can see the ones on top were the xylem and the ones on the bottom were the phloem. So here is the xylem, and the bottom one is the phloem. I don't know why I gave such a big box for that one. And then on the bottom, you have the epidermis again. right? And here we have the um, guard cells and the stoma. Okay, so that hole is the stoma, and the two cells around it are the guard cells. On which part of the leaf do you observe the most stomata? The most of the stoma, or sorry, most of the stomata is plural, are located on the bottom of the leaf, right? You won't hardly ever see stoma, any stomata on the top of the leaf. Explain how this arrangement of cells in the leaf contributes to the efficiency of photosynthesis. So the palisade layer is near the top because it needs to be exposed to the maximum light to do photosynthesis. Right? If we put it on the bottom, if we put the palisade layer on the bottom, it wouldn't be near the top and it wouldn't catch as much light. Which organelle is required for photosynthesis to take place? That's called a chloroplast. What are the reactants of photosynthesis? So what are the ingredients? That is carbon dioxide and water, and I guess light too. What are the products? Products are glucose and oxygen gas. How do the stomata or stomates open and close? Okay. A, water goes into the guard cells, into the central vacuole. The guard cells swell and open. And in B, the water goes out of the guard cells. The central vacuole shrinks and the guard cells shrink and close. Define transpiration. Transpiration is when water molecules are pulled up to the leaves of plants and out into the air. And that's it for the lesson on leaves. You have some additional worksheets where you can do a little bit of reading and answer some questions. And that's going to be a part of your homework tonight. It looks like there's a lot of them, but honestly, it doesn't take you very long to do each sheet. I will post the answers on LMS so you can check your work. And other than that, you have nothing to do today, right? So this is a free non-quiz, non-assignment day for you to take off and relax.